The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up.
Go to Bolt fam. It's the director. Welcome to another victory edition of our game reaction this week versus the Tennessee Titans. Big narratives, I think, coming into this game that made it especially fun and exciting for Chargers fans. And with a little bit on the line this week, right? Like, you got yourself a tough schedule up and coming for the Chargers the next 2-3 weeks. You got to make sure you go in with some momentum, and you can't just win games like this where you got the Titans at 2-6 coming into this game. You got to squish them. You know what I mean? Get that momentum, get that confidence, and get that readiness for the tough matchups to come. But more so, I think something that was at the foreground of this game is the Chargers and Titans had a handful of players that have swapped sides in this game, right? Of course, the Chargers got a couple of their players going to the Titans and Sebastian Joseph Day. Kenneth Murray, K9 Kenneth Murray, a first-round selection for the Chargers, also making his way to Tennessee, playing against their former team this week. And then, of course, the Chargers, who have an awesome narrative in 2024 of taking, we'll say, for lack of a better term, broken players cast aside, players that needed a second chance, and adopting them into the roster. And a lot of these players ended up coming from the Tennessee Titans. The Bolts would trade for Elijah Molden, is a 2026, I think, 7th-round pick is what we gave up. And the dude is leading the team with interceptions, 3 interceptions on the year. He's been a fantastic safety and DB for the Chargers this season. T.R. Tart has been an awesome interior defensive lineman for this team. Hassan Haskins, who scored this week versus his former team, has been an awesome special teamer and at times fullback, right? Christian Fulton, who couldn't make this game, has been an awesome outside corner for the team. And then, of course, Bud Dupree, who logged a couple of sacks this week as well. Ex-Titan. Man, talk about revenge game narrative. I think in terms of, ex-Titans playing against their former team and the ex-Chargers playing against their former team, the Chargers certainly took these guys to the doghouse, man. What an effort and what an awesome statement by these players saying, hey, we know what we were. We got a second chance with the Chargers, and we're going to make you pay for it, because almost every single Titan or ex-Titan on the Chargers made a big impact this week, and it's been awesome to see. And it's been awesome as far as it representing their resurgence and their bounce back this season. It's been really awesome to watch all of that pan out so well for the Chargers and for all these guys. And it's something I hope to see continue into the future, a trend for the Chargers, not just this season, but seasons going forward, where we can take, a player that maybe has struggled in their situation, whether it be in Tennessee or otherwise, adopt them into our system with the awesome coaching that we've got going on here, resurrect some careers and get some value along the way. Because it's not just ex-Titans players that have been doing that. We saw another awesome effort this week by the ex-Ravens running backs. J.K. Dobbins, who's been more or less the star of the show this whole year, was, I think, the epitome of the definition of a comeback player. He's been mentioned as a comeback player of the year alongside a lot of quarterbacks, right? A lot of quarterbacks in that category every year. Well, this year you're seeing J.K. Dobbins, who's had a fantastic season under Jim Harbaugh. Maybe took a little bit more of a back seat this week, though, because guess what? Welcome back from IR, Gus Edwards. The Gus Bus makes his return, and I got to tell you, man, this dude, I don't think we understood how much we missed Gus Edwards on this team, dude. Like, I think there's a couple of things going on here. For one, you're able to run the football the way that you want to. Gus, or I should say Greg Roman, has a certain way of running the football that involves a big, huge, 6'1", 220+ pound running back that we just hadn't had the past, handful of weeks since Gus ended up on IR. And even before that, it feels like Gus was still kind of working through something at that point, that he wasn't quite 100%. And it was pretty evident in the way that he was playing. Well, his first game back, right, versus the Tennessee Titans, who, mind you, do not have a bad defense when it comes to run defense, right? As a matter of fact, overall, they allow the least yards per game in the NFL, at least before this game. They were the number 1 team in the league in terms of yards allowed per game. That defense was awesome. And despite that, Gus Edwards went out there and had a really, really solid game and honestly softened up a lot of what the Chargers would end up getting in big plays later. It was awesome. That old school style of running the football that we've been waiting to see, the Greg Roman I form that we've been waiting to see, it really came to fruition this week. And I got a whole bunch of animations in my stream, where we, if something happens big with Justin Herbert or Ladd McConkey or whatever, we got certain animations that celebrate that. I was hitting the Gus Edwards button over and over and over again this week because he had a fantastic game. Matter of fact, in terms of stats, Gus Edwards rushed 10 times, just 10 times this week, gained 55 yards. I was almost certain he was going to pick up a touchdown. But, man, the momentum was great. On the other side, you got J.K. Dobbins, who ran for 50 yards, 5 more carries, 50 yards, a little less efficient. But, boy, the 1-2 punch of the Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins combination, it worked in this game. Over 100 yards combined for these guys. Didn't get the score, but they felt like they were real impact players on this game. J.K. Dobbins, even though he was getting stuffed a lot, he made some big plays on the outside. Edwards is making big plays over and over on the inside. It just felt like a really, really good game for the Chargers to go out there and say, hey, we're going to do what we're designed to do. We got Gus Edwards back, and it worked beautifully. But one thing that happened this week that makes me very excited for what the Chargers got cooking for the future happened behind our superstar quarterback, Justin Herbert. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I fully expected Justin Herbert to go out there and have a good game passing. He didn't get the 200 yards like I was expecting, but 164 yards and a touchdown definitely helped put us in control of this game. But there's a part of his game that I feel like hadn't surfaced until today that we finally got to see. The mobility and physicality of Justin Herbert, the 6'6" quarterback. Now, you take a look at other Greg Roman offenses that he's coached in the past, in particular the Ravens. He is used to having these mobility quarterbacks, right? You're going to be able to run the football. In some cases, like Josh Allen, you're going to see some physicality added on top of that, too. I saw a lot of Josh Allen and Justin Herbert this week, man. That was so fun to see. Yeah, part of me is a little worried. A little part of me is like, let's not do that. I don't want to risk this and that. But it feels like Justin Herbert's got a really good understanding of how to protect himself. The coaching has been really hammering that in his mind since the Anthony Lynn days even. And you see him run out there, and it feels like we're in good hands, right? But what does this speak for the future? Because if the Chargers all of a sudden take a Justin Herbert who's already a fantastic pocket quarterback, who's already a fantastic passing quarterback, and let him loose and let him rush how many times this week? 9 times for 32 yards and a touchdown? What's that going to do going forward when you have to defend against the Chargers? It's their worst nightmare if you're on their record or you're on their schedule going forward. All of a sudden, you don't just got Justin Herbert. You got a little bit of Josh Allen sprinkled in there, or Lamar Jackson even, right? That part of Justin Herbert's talent, that tool that he's got in his tool belt, has not really been used. And I think it's really similar to what happened with Gus Edwards. And like early in the year, he had that foot injury. We weren't really seeing that utilized. But I think sooner or later in a Greg Roman offense, you're going to see the quarterback a little bit more involved in terms of their mobility and physicality. They have the right quarterback to exercise those plays, and Herbert did a fantastic job, especially that design quarterback run play, man. That was awesome. And Herbert, not only being this big physical, able to run kind of quarterback is fun to watch and impressive, but he's got some moves, dude. Raise your hand if you saw Justin Herbert, not once, not twice, but maybe 3 or more times, juke a defender out of their cleats. Man, he was out there breaking ankles. I don't think I've seen a 6'6" quarterback move as fluidly and as freakishly as he has in a while, man. That was awesome. Justin Herbert adding mobility, rush threat to his arsenal is just going to make life a lot tougher on future opponents. I guarantee it. And with the success that we saw this week, I don't know if we're done. I think Greg Roman might be cooking up a little bit more to feature that as part of his offense going forward because, man, Herbert looks awesome when given that responsibility. All right. In terms of receiving, I don't know what to say, man. So the Titans already, going into this game, we knew they've got a really, really good passing defense. Their DBs, I know they were a 2-6 team, now a 2-7 team. I know there's not a lot to look forward to in terms of optimism if you're a Titans fan, but if they got one thing going for them, their defense does have some studs on it. Yeah, including their DBs, which have been, again, help leading them in that stat in terms of yards allowed per game to the quarterback. Well, this week, yes, Justin Herbert goes in there. He does beat their average, but the Chargers wide receivers are continuing to show me that there's something there. I was pretty disappointed that we didn't move on anybody in the trade deadline. I fully do think, and this is my personal belief, but I'm very convinced that Joe Ortiz was super involved in trade talks, but everyone started overpaying for receivers or whatnot. Thanks, Cowboys. Sending a fourth over to the Carolina Panthers for Jonathan Mingo. Yeah, that started the avalanche of BS that was overpaying for trades. And he just didn't find the value, so the Chargers took a back seat, and they trusted in the guys that got out there. And you know what? The more we're doing that, the more I'm feeling a little bit good about the decision. Sure, we're going to need help going in the future at some point. But Ladd McConkey, 2 receptions, 52 yards. That one catch and run, he caught it for 15. He ran it an extra 15. Ended up being like a 30, 40-yard play. That's just what Ladd McConkey is. And we're seeing that more and more every single week. We're seeing the Chargers challenge the sidelines with these guys that really aren't designed to do that, but we're finding a way to make it work anyway. Josh Palmer caught a huge play. What was his long 36-yard reception for Josh Palmer, 37-yard reception for Ladd McConkey. Beautiful. And then you got Quentin Johnston. Yeah, he only posted 24 yards, but he ran a beautiful route in the back of the end zone, got open, touchdown. Quentin Johnston, who had an awesome week last week, continues that trend this week. Chargers, slowly but surely and persistently are building something here. And again, I don't think we're done. I think the Chargers are going to help themselves out in terms of developing these guys and featuring them a little bit more when you've got a legitimate threat at receiver, whether it be at wide receiver or even at tight end, which tight end today was starting to look like the featured position on offense if you were to start the game that way. Will Dissly, I don't know how many of these he brought in in the first half, but 6 targets, 5 receptions. He picked up 30 yards, at least 1 or 2 first downs. He looked really good, and he looks like he's maybe slotting in more as the Chargers tight end 1, which is awesome. But I do think we need an upgrade at some point down the line. I think you can help feature the talent of McConkey and Palmer and Quentin Johnston and let them continue to develop and all that, while also upgrading what could be a legitimate threat at the tight end position for Justin Herbert. Dissly's doing an awesome job, though. I'm sure he's doing a lot more than he was asked to do. I know he was definitely one of the better run-blocking tight ends entering the season when he was signed by the Chargers. He's being asked to do a lot more in receiving. I think he's doing a decent job, but, man, you imagine this team. You imagine this squad with Colston Loveland next season, which the Chargers, I think, are going to be positioned to do so. I think we're going to be picking in the mid-20s, right? Hopefully later. But I think you can grab a really good tight end, or the Penn State tight end. I think you can get yourself that talent this season in the draft, and I think that's going to help so tremendously impacting this offense, especially if they're already designed for what we're running, like Colston Loveland would offer. Anyway, Chargers, I think, are heading in the right direction. Offense is starting to find their footing. This is the second week we've scored 27 points. Is that correct? Is that correct? Am I getting my dates right here? That's awesome. That's awesome. I would love to crush a team for more than 27 points at some point down the road, but it's not necessary. All that's necessary is to win. And Jim Harbaugh is finding that. Speaking of Jim Harbaugh, I have to give a huge shout out and nod to the new coach of the Chargers. We saw some awesome coaching out there today via the Bolts. One situation, the Chargers, they're looking to get a stop on defense. They stopped the Titans in the red zone. It's a 4th and 6. There's a face mask penalty, though. And you got the choice at that point as a coach to say, hey, no, we'll decline it. It's still a 4th and 6. They can kick their 3 and we can get back on offense. Bend but don't break, right? Well, Jim Harbaugh, in all his wisdom, says, no, man, we're going to take that penalty and we're going to push them back even further. And we are going to lower their chances at getting points at all this drive. And that's something, man, that, none of us here in the chat, and me especially, we're not like professional football minds out here. And so maybe our first knee-jerk reaction isn't to do something like that. That is why Jim Harbaugh makes the big bucks. That's why Jim Harbaugh is so well respected. Instantly, without thought, man, he was like, "Nah, we are pushing this team back. We are holding them to 0 points this drive, and we're putting ourselves in a position to make up for what was a bend not break play by the defense this drive." And it worked. Not only did it push them back 15 yards, they shot themselves in the foot again for additional yardage via another penalty. The Chargers defense did their job, Ipso facto, they missed the field goal, 0 points. Jim Harbaugh, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Harbaugh. We saw excellent coaching throughout the rest of the game as well. Offense was clicking. Defense was maybe struggling a little bit, but the offense was picking up steam. I don't know, man. And shortly after that decision that helped keep the Chargers to holding them to 0 that drive, they showed a compilation of Harbaugh-isms, right? All the quirky stuff that he says in his press conferences. And at that moment, I was like, man, who's got it better than us? I'm going to ask you again in the chat, man. Who's got it better than us? Nobody. No, I'm so grateful Jim Harbaugh is my coach. This is what we fought for all offseason. This is what we were all bleeding for and screaming for, and it finally happened. And there was some concern at the top of the year and some uncertainties at the top of the season as to, where's the team headed? We're not built right, yada, yada, yada. But every week that goes by, Jim Harbaugh reminds us and proves to us why he is such a prestigious name in the sport of football. Not just in the NFL, especially in college, right? It's just in the entirety of the sport of football. Jim Harbaugh is a legend, and he's continuing to build that here with the Bolts. We are so fortunate and blessed that we get to benefit from the twilight years of his career and turn our entire organization and culture around. It's beautiful. And not only to see all the impact he's making behind the scenes and all the impact he's making to our players and again to our locker room, but now honestly being able to see top shelf coaching, decisions, reactions, whatever, in real time, in a game where it matters is a beautiful thing. And I'm very grateful as a Chargers fan that we've got Jim Harbaugh on the sideline leading our team, man. Very, very fortunate. Now, finally, I'm going to wrap up another coach that maybe had a bit of a little less success in this particular week in Jesse Minter. I'm not at all worried. I know we gave up 17 points to the Tennessee Titans, which is something I wasn't planning on seeing this week, but it's only because our expectations are so high, right? Jesse Minter has taken what this defense was, very lackluster, extremely underperforming squad from last season, because a majority of this squad is the same from last year, mind you. And turned him into a superstar defense in the NFL. The only reason we're disappointed that we let up 17 points is because we're so used to seeing 3, 6, 10 on the opposite side of the scoreboard. This week we see 17. Yeah, it's a little bit more than we expected. I expected 6, maybe 3. But even that being the case, we still haven't let up more than 20 points to an opponent in the entirety of the season. That is absolutely insane. I don't think a team has done this. I don't remember the exact stat. I don't think a team has done this since the mid-2000s? Was it 2006, 2008? I don't remember. But it's a very rare thing to see a team go this long without letting up more than 20 points. It's awesome. And Jesse Minter, he had one of those days where it's like, the defense struggled a little bit. Tennessee was making some plays. I was expecting to see the Will Levis meme play today. Didn't get to see that. Didn't get to see the interception. They played a good game mostly, in terms of their offense. But I expect that to bounce back by next week, and we are going to need it next week. And that's going to lead me to my final point of this game. The reason why the Chargers win over the Titans was such a huge deal, and the way we won it was such a huge deal, was because of the things that are about to come. All right, I'm actually going to put it up here to make sure I have all my P's and Q's in the right order here. I'm pretty sure I do. Now, the Chargers, who, let's say, have been a little bit fortunate in terms of their schedule the last 3 weeks. They had a Saints team without Derek Carr and a handful of other players that they grabbed the win 26-8 back in October 27. November 3rd, they played the Cleveland Browns, which, again, without their starting quarterback, this time it was Jameis Winston. They end up beating that team 27-10. Awesome. This week, Tennessee Titans, also 2-6, mind you. The 2-6 Browns, then the 2-6 Titans going into that game. We beat them 27-17. You could say we've been a little bit fortunate in terms of the strength of schedule the last 3 games or so, right? It's about to heat up. It really is. The Chargers next week are going to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. You got a pissed off Joe Burrow that's likely going to be slinging it all over the place. Defense needs to be locked in, ready to go. I think we can do it. It's going to be a tough game, though. We needed the momentum from this game. Next week's going to be a big, mind you, moved to prime time game for the Chargers. It's a big one. And we're going to need it. We're going to need the momentum. The week after that, we got the Baltimore Ravens, the Harbaugh. One of the biggest narratives in all of football, Jim Harbaugh versus John Harbaugh. We're going to need some momentum. The big one. Another primetime game, mind you. That one's a Monday Night Football game against another prestigious AFC opponent. The week after that, we got the Falcons. That's how I say it. Get over it. The Falcons. Maybe a little less of a worry. I mean, still, it's going to be a tough one. They got a good offense in terms of those studs, those stars. But then after that, you got the Chiefs. Ugh. So 3 of the next 4 games are going to be versus some of those big boy opponents. And if you're going to be a big boy yourself in this league, you're going to need to beat 1 or 2 of those teams. You're going to have to do it. You're going to need to prove to me, the Chargers fans, you're going to need to prove to yourself, the team and the squad, the coaching. You're going to need to prove to the NFL, your competition, that you are for real. And to do that, you need to beat either the Bengals, the Ravens, or the Chiefs, or a combination of the 3. You're going to need to do it. And a big way that you can help yourself out is by winning the games that they've won in the way that they have been. And what I mean by that is they didn't just go out there and beat the Saints, a struggling Saints team. They didn't just survive, right? They didn't just squeak on by, 3-point deficit, a disturbing Yoga Staley on the sideline distracting everybody. No, they went in and they destroyed the Saints 26-8. That is how you beat a struggling team. That's how a good team beats a struggling team. They proved it that game. The Browns, same thing. Struggling team. They're imploding. They're missing Deshaun Watson. They're all over the place. We didn't just go in there and survive that game. We squashed them 27-10. That is how a good football team beats a bad football team. The Titans, same thing. Maybe it was a little less that this week. I'm not going to lie. It could be the garbage time touchdown speaking or whatever, but we did. I would say that as a Chargers fan who witnessed this game, it feels like we crushed them 27-17. 3 weeks in a row, the offense is looking awesome in and around 27 points. Awesome. Before that, bad teams that we've played, the Carolina Panthers, they were at that point like a neutron star imploding. They were very bad. We didn't just go in there and won. We crushed them 26-3. Now, and we've done that several times throughout the season. My point here is that the Chargers, at least to me, have proven that they are a good team, despite the fact that they've had a softer strength of schedule. Because they didn't just survive those games. Chargers of the past just barely survived those games. It's a heart attack in the fourth quarter for everybody. That's the Chargers of yesterday. The Chargers of today, they take care of business. Despite, maybe an easier opponent, they don't just win and squeak by. They crush them. And that's just the way it is if you're a good team. Now comes the true test. With all that momentum, you're on a 3-game winning streak. You've not just won, but you've crushed all 3 of these opponents. That momentum is going to be so important leading up into these next 3 or 4 weeks, right? That momentum could very well be the reason why you survive or win a Bengals matchup next week. It could very well be the reason why you win or survive a game versus the Ravens Monday Night Football on the 25th, the Thanksgiving week, right? And it could be the reason why maybe the Chargers find that momentum into the early weeks of December and maybe, just maybe, find their first win versus the Chiefs in a minute, right? Momentum is huge. Winning is not enough versus these lower record teams. We not only won, we squashed them. I feel like momentum is here. Confidence is here. Understanding of the team and the roster is here. The coaching is here. It's time to get to work versus these big boys. First test next week, Cincinnati Bengals, going to be a big one. I'm excited to cover that one here on Bleacher Report and on my YouTube channel. Should be a really fun one. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me today on this episode featuring the Chargers squashing of the Tennessee Titans. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below and how you feel the Chargers, now in a 3-game winning streak, are going to fare versus the following opponents in the Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, and Chiefs in the next month of Chargers football. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. We'll catch you next time. If you liked what you saw here, hit us up with the follow on Bleacher Report. As always, bolt up and stay frosty.